All right, well, many of you know me, many of you don't, but my name's Michelle Imig, and given it's Family Sunday, Pastor and I thought it would be very fitting for me to first talk about myself and my family and just a little bit of my background so that you guys know who I am and where I come from, rather than just jump into the world race. So, my first slide, I have a picture of my family. Love those guys. They're crazy, but I love them. And the reason why I show you this picture is because we're all visual and it helps. And they're a huge reason why I am the person I am today. I would not be the Michelle Renee Imig you see standing in front of you were I not born into this family. The two good-looking people in the center are my mom and dad, Mike and Bonnie Imig. And if you've ever been to the nursery, you've probably seen them because they both help out there. They've always been in there since I've known them, which is my whole life, pretty much. But my dad is Michael, and if anyone ever tells me that I'm silly or odd or just very random, I just tell them, you should meet my dad. And for those of you that know him, I'm sure you can testify and say, yes, Mike Imig is pretty funny sometimes and very witty, and that's where his life comes into mine. My mom, Bonnie, I don't know that I've ever met anyone quite as compassionate or loving towards infants or children as her. She's always loved on them so unconditionally over the years, and I just pray to God that that love for children and babies would pour over into my life, and that I would in turn love others in the way that I've seen her love kids. And she's got a heart of gold. If anyone needs help, she's always saying, yes, I'll bake you something, I'll make you something, and I'll help out. And that's my mom. The two people standing behind me on your right-hand side are my sister Heather and her husband Jacob and their two little kids. Heather's the oldest out of all of us girls, and she lives out in California. She did her internship out there when she was in college, and she decided she liked it so much, so she packed her bags and moved out there. And for those of you who have siblings or a loved one that lives far away, I can sympathize when it's hard to be away from them for so long. But she's always been the bigger sister. I've always looked up to her. She's always loved on me and given me good advice over the years, and that's Heather. And then the other two couples on the left side are my sisters Emily and Amanda and their boyfriends and husband, yes, Bernie and Mark. Emily's the second oldest, and I would have to say Emily and I were probably the ones that didn't get along quite as well growing up. She was a bit older than me, so I was the annoying, bratty little tag-along sister that had to do what she did. And so we didn't get along too much, but like any other siblings, I'm sure you guys can tell that once you get older, you kind of get over that and you don't hate each other as much anymore. So it's nice because Emily and I are friends now, and we hang out every now and then. And then Amanda, she's the one sitting on the little stoop thingy. She's a year and a half, I think, older than me. And if anyone had to ask me who my best friend in the whole entire world was, and it had to be a person, I would say it's Amanda, just because we've grown up so close in age. We've done everything together. We played Barbies together. We matched our clothes, and we still do that every now and then. But she's just always been there for me. If I ever need to vent frustrations or just talk to someone, she's always been the first person I normally turn to. So that's my family. Once again, they're a huge reason why I am the person I am today. I wouldn't be the same Michelle Imig that you see right now were I not born into this crazy family. And yes, we have fights just like any other family. In fact, I had a fight with my mom a few days ago, and I love you, Mom. She's in the nursery watching this. But that's my family. And on the next picture, it's a picture of me and my dog. And I was hesitant to put this up there, but I decided to go ahead with it just because I've learned so much about God's unconditional love through my dog. And I know that might sound a little odd at first, but every day I come home, since I was in 3rd grade, since we've had Sammy, she's always been at the back door wagging her tail. And now that she's a bit old, it doesn't wag quite as much, but she loves us so much. And even if we've left her outside in the cold, or if we've forgotten to fill her water bowl or food dish, she still loves us. And I've seen a little bit of God's unconditional love shine through my dog. And even when I was little, and if I had troubles or if I felt lonely, I would just turn to my dog and she'd lick me on the face. And I don't know, I just feel like a little bit of God's love shines through animals. So yes, sometimes dogs are man's best friend. So that's my family, and that's my dog. And what I want to talk about next are just a few things that have influenced my life and that have had a huge impact, like my family has. So the next picture is the church. Like Pastor mentioned, this is the church that I grew up in. I can remember doing all the little plays as a little tot and just running up and down the hallways. And I'll be honest, I'm sorry for any of you who were my Sunday school teacher, because I think I was a menace. I look back and I'm like, whew, they put up with me. But I cannot tell you guys thank you enough for always being there. Your prayer and your support and your love throughout the years truly does mean the world to me. And granted, when I went away to college and I loved the church that I was at there, and coming back here was a bit hard just because that was my new home church, I still do love this church so much just because of you guys. You guys are so loving and so wonderful. And I remember the first semester at school, I kept thinking, why did I come to Olivet? Why? I miss my home church, and I miss Pastor and everyone. And you guys have had a huge impact, once again, on who I am. So that's one factor. Another factor is Manville Church Camp. For those of you who don't know, Manville Church Camp is our district's church camp, but sadly we don't go there anymore because we don't own it. But I went there for 11 summers of my life. And the reason why this has such a huge impact on my life is because that was where I first accepted Christ into my life. It was at girls' camp. I was either 7 or 8, and I have no idea what the speaker was talking about. I don't remember. But at the end, he said, if you'd like to accept Jesus into your heart, you can come and do that. So I was like, that sounds like fun. So I went up to the altar, prayed the sinner's prayer, and I'm forever grateful for that day because that was the first decision that I ever made to accept Christ into my life. And Manville is also important because later on down the road, it was at junior high camp when I accepted the call to the full-time ministry. We had a missionary who was a speaker there, and she was talking about missions and the full-time ministry. And at the end, she asked if anyone felt like they had a call to that as an occupation. And I don't know how quite to explain it other than I felt a tug on my heart. So I raised my hand and responded yes. And she had all of us students that did to go back to the tabernacle, and we filled out little cards saying, yes, I accepted the call to the ministry. And so pretty much ever since junior high, I've been on the track to becoming a full-time minister of some sort. I never really thought about doing anything else, and I just felt like God wanted to use me as a full-time minister as an occupation, because I believe we're all supposed to be ministers and missionaries no matter what job we have. But I felt led towards it as an occupation. So that's another influencing factor, Manville Church Camp. Our next one is our youth group. And I'm not sure why all of us girls are holding that guy up, but that was one picture that I found. Yes. The youth group here really molded and shaped me into the woman of God I am today. In particular, our former youth pastor, Julie Christie, really loved on us students and just poured her life into ours. And even just the small things like picking my sister and I up from high school and taking us out to Whitey's, or taking us to Steak and Shake after youth group, just little small things and the big things both meant a lot. And I believe that it's because of her and her influence in my life that I felt led towards youth ministry. A lot of my professors in my ministry courses talked about your call towards the ministry, and whether it was children's, pastoral, youth, or mission work. And they said most times you feel led towards a certain direction because you had a really good experience in that particular field. And I strongly believe it's because I had a really good youth group and I had a good youth pastor growing up that's why I felt led towards youth ministry. And I love junior hires and high schoolers. They're so crazy, and I feel like I fit right in. And not saying that I don't love little kids or older adults. Y'all are fabulous. But I don't know. I feel like the reason why I wanted to do youth ministry is because I had so much love poured into my life that I want to pour it into the lives of other students and youth. So that's another influencing factor. And then the final one is Olivet Nazarene University. I could probably talk for hours about this school, but I don't want to bore you guys to death, and that's not why we're here. But the past 4 years at Olivet were wonderful and terrible at the same time. I learned what it meant to grow in community outside of people, your own family, your immediate family. I had wonderful roommates all 4 years, but yes, we had fights and we rubbed on each other a little bit, but I believe is a good thing because they challenged me in ways that I hadn't been challenged before. And my courses in school challenged me in ways that I didn't think were possible, especially spiritually, like when I would leave courses someday just thinking, wow, I didn't think that would happen in class today, or we would leave on the brink of tears. All of that's just really had an influence on my life, and especially the professors there who just love on all of us students. So that's about Olivet. And so you guys might be wondering now how I got introduced to the World Race. The World Race, ta-da. It was my junior year during spring break. My mom and I came home, and we went to a store in downtown Moline called Mud Puddle Roo, and it's a fair trade store. And at the cash register, there's a little bucket, and it said, please support me, and it had cards with a prayer request and then something about missionary work, and then it had a link at the bottom. And so I took one, not really knowing what it was, and I did some research about the World Race, and I'm thinking, you go to 11 countries in 11 months? That's so intense. And I don't know, I just thought it would be a really awesome thing to do. But given I was a junior and I still had another year of college to go, I kind of put it to the back of my mind, because this program is particularly for college grads or people from the age of 21 to 35. So I wasn't really eligible quite yet to do it. So I had one more year of college left, and senior year rolls along, and I'll be honest, I felt a little bit more confused about the full-time ministry as a calling than I did going into Olivet. I still feel like the Lord wants to use me as a minister to his people, but I just didn't quite see it anymore as a local church, or as a pastor in a local church. And I'm still struggling and wrestling with that as to whether or not God wants to use me in that vocation, or if he has something else in mind for me. So since I didn't secure any plans after graduation, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to graduate. And random side note, I work at the YMCA, and a little boy asked me, Michelle, are you a college student or a real live adult? And part of me laughed, and I was like, I'm a real live adult, and then at the same time I'm freaking out and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a real live adult. Because after being at college for 4 years, I had the college experience. I stayed up till 4 a.m. eating junk food and writing papers and watching very random YouTube videos. So becoming a real live adult wasn't the most appealing thing, but I'm getting over it. That was really random. But I was thinking, I don't know what I want to do after graduation. I don't feel like I need to look for a local church right now. And given that I had taken a very heavy course load my last semester of college, which is not a good idea, I didn't want to go to grad school. I was like, I just want to be done. I want to sleep forever. And grad school just wasn't an option for me at the time. So the World Race came back into my mind, and I actually knew of someone from Olivet that had graduated the year before I did, and she was doing the World Race. So I stalked her blogs a little, and every time I would read them, my heart would just start racing, and I'm thinking, what if the Lord wants me to do this? What if this is what he has for me after graduation, and maybe that's why I'm not feeling led towards a church at the moment? So I started praying about it, and the first time I mentioned it to any of my family members, it was to Amanda, because she's always normally the first one I talk to. And I'm calling her on the phone, and I said, so I heard about this mission trip to where you go to 11 countries in 11 months, but I'm probably not going to do it because it's really expensive and it's a really long time. But I'm just interested. And she's like, oh, okay. And that's pretty much all she said about that. And then the first time I mentioned it to my parents, I came home on a break once, and I'm thinking, how on earth am I going to tell them about this? What are they going to say? We were watching TV, and I said, so I have something I want to say to you guys. And they're just like, okay. And I told them about the World Race, and my mom's just like, all right. And my dad's like, that's neat. And then they just go back to watching TV. I don't think they thought I was really serious at the point, but it probably didn't help that I wasn't sure about it either. But I just kept praying about it more and more. And finally, after graduation, I went ahead and applied. And there's a process where you have to apply online, and then you have a phone interview. And they can either accept you or reject you for this. And my main prayer throughout the whole process was that, Lord, if you don't want me to do this, if you want me to become a pastor, if you want me to go to grad school or do something else, have them reject me. And ultimately, I went into the whole process thinking that, Lord, if this isn't your will, I don't want to do it. But if this is, that will be awesome. And I did the phone interview, and a week later they called and they said, we want you to do the world race. So I firmly believe now that this is something that the Lord maybe opened a door for me after graduation. So I guess what I want to do now is just talk about some frequently asked questions about the world race so that you have some idea as to what it really is. So the first one, what is the world race? It's a missions trip that is done through a nonprofit organization called Adventures in Missions, and they put out a lot of missions trips for like high school age, college age, and as I mentioned earlier, this one is for people that are between the ages 21 and 35. So they do a lot of missions trips. They have contacts in a lot of different countries over the world, and they basically send you overseas to do whatever ministry needs to be done in that country with that contact. And it's for 11 months, and it's to 11 different countries. When am I leaving and where am I going? I am leaving January 10th of 2012, and they try to get us back before Thanksgiving, but essentially I'll be back next November. And the countries that I'm going to are the Philippines, China, India, Nepal, Swaziland, Mozambique, South Africa, Moldova, Romania, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. And I always have to count using my fingers or else I'll forget one. But those are the 11 countries that I'll be going to, and those aren't the only countries they go to. They go to many other countries in the world, but that's just the particular route that I chose. What will I do? I will do pretty much a cornucopia of things. They basically place us with a contact, and that contact could be a local church, it could be a school of some sort, or it could be a ministry that helps out in a specific way. I could work with orphans in an African country. I could minister to women and children who have been a part of sex trafficking. I could clean churches. I know of Samantha, the woman that did the world race. Her and her team, they had to clean out a baptistry that had been, it was flooded by a flood, and there were things in there that were found in like sewers and stuff. So it could really be a whole sort of things. And there's open air preaching. We could do revivals or do vacation Bible schools. Basically anything that contact needs done, they'll ask us, and we'll just say, here we are, let us do whatever needs to be done. With whom will I travel? I'll try not to confuse you. Basically, they send us out as a squad, and on my squad, we're called C Squad. There's 44 of us all together, and then they break that squad down into teams of 5 to 7 people, and I will travel with that team for 3 months. So I will be with 6 other people. There's 3 men and then 4 of us ladies, and we will travel and be placed at a certain place. And sometimes another team could join us, sometimes not, but that's how we will be going from country to country, is with our team. And after about 3 months, they switch those teams up a little bit just so that you can maybe get to know some other people a little bit more, and so that your nerves aren't always on edge from being with the same people for 3 months. And then everyone's favorite question, how much does it cost and what does it cover? The cost it's a big number, but let me break it down for you. It's $15,500, but when you consider that this trip covers my traveling, my lodging, my food, other odds and ends like my visa, it covers so much, and it's for 11 months. Whereas sometimes other missions trips that are for about a week can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000, and this is for 11 months, and it's around $15,000. So it's not a terrible number, but it is a big number, but I am fully confident that if the Lord called me to do this, He will provide. So it covers a lot. And what are the financial deadlines for the race? First, I just wanted to apologize. I had sent out a lot of letters in the summertime asking for support raising, and I didn't really mention the deadlines because I didn't really know about them. But I made the first deadline. I had a deadline by October, and then in December on the 15th, I will have to have half of my funds raised, and then on 6 months onto the field, I'll have to be fully funded. So if anyone had decided to become a monthly donor, some of the months that they would pay for would have to be made in advance. But if you have any more questions about that, you can ask me. So, I have a video that I wanted to show real quick, just about the World Race. It's just a little promotional video, so enjoy.
Want them to know what I know.
You have a whisper or a rumor of something more, something different, something unique, something you haven't yet tapped into on the inside of you. I believe that that's the kingdom. And so the World Race, while being this trek around the world, is an opportunity for you to come out from where you are, come into the destiny that God has for you.
There's something about the journey, there's something about who you meet and who you get to see, the people that you get to travel alongside, that gives you an understanding of what life is really about and what is really important.
Everybody comes into the early adult years with this big old vision about changing the world. The reality is you can't change anything until you're changed first.
See, that's when all of a sudden our dreams are not about us anymore. And I think what the World Race does and will do for you is give you a chance to actually start living and thinking beyond yourself.
With the World Race. We're really excited. We're in a crossroads for this major intersection.
I've never been so alive in my life. I can't go back to who I was.
We don't change things politically. We don't change things through the Peace Corps. We don't change things by picketing. We change things by being in the middle of the world and releasing the kingdom of God.
In Matthew 10, Jesus says to you, heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, so freely give. That's what Jesus says to do. That's what you do. That's what you do. So my question is, are you doing that?
Jesus sent them to come during my sickness, so God is there.
The first time I showed my dad that video was when I first mentioned it to my parents, and it wasn't on the same day, but I showed it to him, and at the end of it he said, "So why do you want to go?" And a few things came to mind. The first thing that I thought of was, well, I've never been on a missions trip, and I've always wanted to do one, and I feel as though the opportunity was never presented itself to me. There were opportunities while at Olivet, but for financial reasons, I wasn't even sure that I would be able to attend the next semester at school. And then again, I wonder if maybe I just didn't trust God enough, but that's another message. But the main reason that I wanted to go on the World Race is because of what Samantha told me. I actually got a chance to talk with Samantha, the girl who did the World Race, last month, and I asked her about her experience, and she said, she was speaking about herself. She said, the Samantha before the World Race was a good Samantha. She was a Christian, and she loved the Lord, and she loved people, and she was a good person. The Samantha after the World Race was radically different. She was transformed from the inside out, and when when she says she needs God, she fully needs him. And when she says she depends on him with every ounce of her being. And I'm sitting there thinking, I want that so bad. Yes, I do love the Lord and I love people, but I feel like while I was at Olivet, I started to put God in a box while I was studying about him. I could talk about him or debate him or discuss him to others, but did I really talk to him as much anymore? And so God became more of an out there than an inward relationship with me. And I was desiring that so much. And I just know that the world race would be an awful but wonderful experience where God would break me, completely bare me, because I won't be here in the U.S. with all of my comforts and everything I'm used to. And he's just going to strip me of everything that I am and just really pull me closer to him. And while that scares me so much, I know that's what needs to happen in my life. And I don't want to say that can't happen here in the U.S. because you guys are wonderful. There's proof that there are wonderful people in this church and in the U.S. But I know that in my case, I feel like I have to go and I have to abandon everything and really, really depend on God like I say I do. So that's probably the main reason. Sure, it'll be wonderful going to all these countries and being able to heal people, heal their sicknesses, and just minister to them. But they said in the video, you can't change anyone until you yourself are changed. And I believe that's one of the main reasons why I need to go on the race, is so that the Lord can change me from the inside out, and so that I can in turn change and transform others through him. So I guess now ways you can support me. The first one is pray, pray, and pray. You can never pray too much. I will need all the prayer that I can get, because I know it'll be hard. I've been told it's the worst year and the best year of your life, and so I will need your prayer and your love and support. Second one, pray some more. I'll need a lot of it. I'm emphasizing the prayer part. Third one is follow my blog and leave encouraging comments. I have a link to my blog up there. If you can't read it, it's michelleemig.theworldrace.org. And while I'm on the field, they encourage us to blog at least twice a week, so that people back home can know what we're doing and what's going on in our life, so that y'all aren't left out in the dark. So if you follow it and if you leave wonderful, encouraging comments, that would be great, because I know there will be times when I'm homesick, and just even a simple, I love you, Michelle, I'm praying for you, would lift me so much, and it would be wonderful. So that's another way that you can support. And give financially. There are different ways that you can help support financially. And if you want to ask me any details about how you can give, I would be more than willing to give you some advice or offer some suggestions on donating. And then the last one is support my fundraisers. We a couple weeks ago, I had a fundraising night at Chick-fil-A, and praise the Lord, they gave me a check for $100 for all I earned that night, and they're going to let me do it again. I haven't solidified the date again, but it'll be probably in December. There might be 2 different dates. But basically, if you come to Chick-fil-A, hand them a flyer or mention my name for that specific date, they will give me 10% of their earnings. And I'm also selling bracelets through this really awesome fundraiser. There's this organization called Threads of Hope, and they basically gave me some bracelets. They gave me 500, and I sell them, and half of the money goes to me, and the other half goes towards the families that made them in the Philippines, which is a pretty sweet deal. So that's another fundraiser. And I'm also thinking of doing a silent pie auction. So for any of you, men or women, that like to bake pies, if you'd like to support me that way, come on out and either help give a pie or purchase one. So those are just some ways that you can help support me. And I'd like to close with my life verse and my favorite Bible verse. It's Acts 20:24. However, I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the good news of God's grace. Since high school, I've always loved that verse, and I find it very fitting that they mention the word race in there, but I know that's not what Paul was talking about. But I really want that verse to always resonate in my life, that it is worth nothing unless I am doing something for the Lord and completing the task, which is testifying about his goodness and his grace. And I feel very privileged that he would call me to do something like this, because Pastor mentioned a few weeks ago about how God will ask us to give in whatever capability or capacity that we can, whether that's actually going on the field and doing missionary work, or if that's supporting financially or supporting through prayer as a prayer warrior. And I believe that the Lord is asking me to actually be that person to go. And not everyone has always asked that, and I just can't help but be humbled and humiliated by the fact that he would want to use me in that capacity. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the World Race, and I just want to thank you in advance for whatever it is that you decide to do. If it's pray, that is awesome. I can't say thank you enough. So that's it.
And let's close the service this morning with reading from God's Word, shall we? Take your hymnal and turn in the back to number 777. It's a responsive reading about Thanksgiving. And then we will close with a traditional Thanksgiving song.